Everybody wanted more Google. They wanted more. The tricky thing was you couldn't make people search more necessarily, right? So you didn't have unlimited inventory. So you had to, which is really what whoever was the architect, and there's many fathers and mothers of this, but like everything just drove back to the search. Every product that ever was created was just sending people to more search boxes, right? From Gmail to YouTube for that matter, but definitely mobile, which seems so obvious today, but like at the time, it was just a great cash machine. It was cranking and we kept feeding the beast and it worked.
Welcome to the Early Podcast, where I interview the builders behind the world's most iconic companies. I'm Max Crowley. I was Uber's 25th employee and spent years scaling one of this generation's wildest rides. Each week, I sit down with the early innovators who really made it all happen. So please tune in, like the show, subscribe, tell your friends, keep coming back. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Kevin Weller. I was an early Google employee and I started in sales as an account executive.
Kevin Weller.
Cool.
Welcome to the podcast.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
The legend, Max Crowley. Early Uber in Chicago.
Yes.
I should be interviewing you.
Exactly. It's kind of crazy. I mean, in preparing for this,
Yes.
I did in some way like follow in your footsteps a bit, like 10 years
for sure.
later.
No, I always thought that.
It's
for sure.
Insane. And Mike
In
Buffalino.
fact, I screwed up. I was going to bring you a gift and I didn't. I think I told you this maybe on the phone. I found an Uber, what do you call those things? Sleeveless.
Oh, a tank.
Like a tank top, but a really thin one, neon green. It says Uber across it. Yeah, I'm sure that was a gift from you. I was going to give it back to you, but now I've forgotten it, so I'm going to bring it next time, or I'm going to ship it to you. Anyway, Mike Buffalino.
Yes, Mike Buffalino.
Yes, who I see still. That's
great,
right.
Great guy.
Yes, great guy. Great family.
Yes.
Yes.
He was my boss at Accenture.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was telling him about Uber, and he was like, I know this guy, Kevin Weller. He started Google in Chicago.
That's right.
And obviously at the time, I didn't think Uber, that would be that level of starting Uber in Chicago, but then Uber.
What year was that?
2011.
11. What year was Uber started?
Mid 2010.
Okay.
So about a year in.
That tracks.
Yeah.
That tracks with the story I tell people, because people are always like, is it a good time to start companies during a downturn, like an economic downturn? I'm always like, Uber came out of the Great Recession, essentially,
absolutely.
Right? I mean, that is one of the massive success stories. So that tracks. But so 2011, and then you eventually migrated out west. Yeah.
I did make the move. I have that question for you.
I did. I walked by a massive Uber brand the other day in front of the post office. I mean, it's like, one of those huge outdoor art things, Uber. They're big in Chicago now.
Yeah, I think that's their office. Is the post office.
No, for sure. Yeah. That's why they have the sign over it. Yeah. So you started that.
I started that.
And on Foursquare, not to date ourselves, now Swarm, you created 1871, the location, which I still get reminded of. When I check in there, it's like, Max Crowley found.
I was like, I knew that place was going to be big. I want to get the mayorship early.
We'll hit on that at some point.
Yes. All right. So where did you grow up? And what stands out from your childhood?
Yeah, I grew up in Wilmette, Illinois, which is a northern suburb of Chicago. My grandparents were born in Europe, so I'm second generation, I guess, or at least on my dad's side. My dad grew up in Milwaukee. My mom grew up in Chicago. She's Irish. She's Swiss. They got together. We were born in Wilmette and lived a great life growing up there, Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, all boys, Loyola Academy, go Ramblers. And it was great. Parents were like, we'll get you an education and you will do the rest and go work. So we worked since we were super young. We were never given just money for whatever. And in that neighborhood, sometimes people are, right? And so I had jobs since I was a kid, caddying, mowing lawns, babysitting, whatever, working at pharmacies. I was good at working at pharmacies, working
the
retail.
Heyday of pharmacies.
Yeah, non-Walgreens, like, the neighborhood corner store or whatever, which famously, Home Alone was actually going to be filmed, if people remember that movie, and Kevin going to the grocery store or going to the pharmacy to get the toothbrush. Yes. Right? Because he had to brush his teeth. That was going to be filmed in that pharmacy I worked in. A guy came in one day, was like, who's in charge? I'm like, guy in back. He's like, all right. He goes back, and then the pharmacist comes on. I'm like, what do he want? He's like, they're looking for a place to film a movie about some kid that gets left home alone or something. I was like, what? That's a terrible idea.
Maybe the most famous movie now.
Yeah, so I didn't work at the pharmacy. I worked at one they considered, but it was great. Yeah, I love growing up there. I was lucky too, and that's it.
You graduate and you almost work on Wall Street.
Yeah. So then Loyola, two brothers. Sorry, this is relevant. My older brother goes to Boston College. I'm at Loyola Academy. It's all boys Jesuit at the time. And I don't follow him there, but I went to visit a few times. Like, this is great. And tough school to get into, right? Like I was lucky to get in there. We had a great Jesuit president who helped some of us go that direction. And the Jesuit education was extremely important. Men for others, now men and women for others. Jesuit values, just like all of that, like service work. It was a big part of my growing up and helped inform some of the things I did later in my career. Not that it's over.
As you still do it.
Yeah.
And then you were going to work on Wall Street, but then you ended up on a dude ranch in Wyoming.
Yeah. So I go to BC, study business. Best job in college ever. I delivered newspapers, again, aging myself. So this was 92, 96, pre-internet. And this helped inform things too. My brother had done this before. I was the campus manager for Boston Globe and New York Times. So we would deliver newspapers to kids' dorm rooms. And it was a highly lucrative business. We were independent contractors and just, worked in the morning, delivered papers, and then was done for the day. So I was a paper boy in college. Senior year, they wired all the dorms for this internet thing and business tanked. So
oh my God, you're the last paper boy.
That and I totally take credit for this, though nobody could ever confirm it. There was a family, the Taylor family owned the Boston Globe at the time. And I was an intern there one summer and we had a lunch with the CEO, the president, the family that owned it. They since have sold it or whatever. I sat next to him at the lunch. He said, "What do you think about this internet thing?" And I was like, "I think it's got some legs. I don't know. I think it might be around for a while." And this is a little known thing. Boston Globe is the only, I think, major newspaper that owns their city URL, Boston.com. Like the Chicago Tribune doesn't own Chicago.com. New York Times, I don't think owns New York.com. But I think I had something to do with it.
There you go. You're the reason.
Yeah.
So they're still in business.
So yeah. So anyway, the internet's taken off, and then I'm going to go to Wall Street, which is what you do. You go to the cruise center, you meet a bunch of companies, and you get some job offers. You're like, I'm going to go be a stock something or analyst something, or I don't know what it was.
Banker something.
Banker of some sort. And my brother was an accountant at Arthur Anderson, and I was like, oh, I'll go that route. And something happened in my senior year. I still don't know I can't remember the moment, but it was just like, that's not right. Like, I mean, I love New York. I live in Wall Street. I just go in there wasn't right for me. And so I turned down the job offers, much to my parents' chagrin.
I'm sure they were excited about that.
They're like, great, we paid all this money for the education. You don't have a job? What are you going to do? I'm like, well, my brother had told me about a friend who went to a dude ranch in Wyoming. I'm going to go check that out. So I moved to Wyoming, which is awesome, by the way. Best summer of my life, like fun summer, like riding horses, fly fishing every day. You work 6 days, 1 day off. I was like the concierge at the ranch. So I just got to take care of all these fancy people who came to visit. And we had like CEOs, we had senators, we had actually Neil Armstrong came. He was still alive at the time. There was like a whole group of us. So it was kind of a cool summer where I got to hang out with all these successful people and learn from them a little bit in between their
just the proximity.
Activities,
yeah.
Right? Totally. And then want to hang out. Like one night I had to help out at the bar and this guy, Herb Kelleher, was there. You know that name at all?
Yeah.
Founder of Southwest Airlines. They said, he's going to stay up late and you cannot go to bed until he goes to bed. Like you can't shut down the bar until like 3, 4 in the morning. And he's gone now, rest in peace. But he's drinking whiskey, smoking Reds, and he's just telling stories about Southwest Airlines. It would be an amazing early podcast if he was still around.
Stick him up.
You just learn so much from talking to guys like that. It was a great summer.
And then how do you transition into
I went home and moved in with my parents. It was great. Yeah, they were happy. They were thrilled.
I did that too. So.
Right? We do this.
Yes.
And then I was looking for a job, but it took a while because this was like fall of 96. Job market was starting, .com boom was starting, but it wasn't great for entry level. And in Chicago, I was like, I want to work in tech. I had this insight. I guessed I wanted to work in technology. I don't know what that was, and I didn't have a technical degree, so I was going to have to find some kind of business job. There's not many tech companies in Chicago in 1996, 97. You know that. Anybody doing a search knows that. It was basically Motorola, who had basically invented the cell phone. Go Motorola, I mean, shell of itself today, but was an awesome, amazing company. And then a company called US Robotics, which made a product called the modem, which was the way you got on the internet. You plug your phone lines in, make funny noises, and you get on the internet. I was like, well, that sounds interesting. So I went and joined them.
It was Chicago-based?
Yeah. And they had gone public. I heard stock options were good. You should get stock options. And if it goes public, you'll make a lot of money. I was like, okay, whatever that means. That sounds good. I took an entry-level sales job and learned a ton there. But that was the hardware side. That wasn't the internet. It was the way to get on. It was the on-ramp, but it wasn't like, it was still making boxes and selling them in stores. They did have the Palm Pilot though in their portfolio, which you remember Palm Pilot?
Of course, yeah.
The Palm Pilot was like the iPhone. I mean, clearly they didn't see where it was going or didn't execute or whatever. That was one of the hottest selling products. We loved selling that product. So it was a good experience. First job out of college, tech, publicly traded company. And then we got acquired by a big Silicon Valley company called 3Com, was publicly traded. And there were all these great synergies that were going to happen. And it didn't really work out. It wasn't like a great merger, which taught me a ton because I was sitting there like never been through a merger. 2 years into my business career, people are getting laid off. People are like, there's uncertainty. People aren't working that hard because they're like, I don't know if I'm going to have a job. You see culturally how that affects people. And it was Silicon Valley culture trying to merge with Chicago culture, which doesn't always work for obvious or not obvious reasons. Anyway, the merger didn't work out great. They offered buyouts. And I was like, all right, I want to go work on the internet. I realized at this point, the hardware side wasn't where it's at. You had to be on the software side. And so I find a way into a company of CMGI. CMGI was kind of the holding company they were invested in Lycos. If you remember Lycos with the golden or the black lab, they were invested in all these different tech companies and they would bring them public like 6 months a year. And they were the incubator of the East to all the ones on the West. And if you look at the stock chart, went from single digits to 1,000 plus a share to single digits within 18 months. It was the perfect stock chart. I show it to students a lot because it was like the run up and run down. And we all had millions on paper and stock options and never saw a dime of it. We would invest in time while it crashed. So it's like, oh, well, that sucks. But you see the potential in these things. So I was with them in Boston. I went back to Boston for them because that's where they were based. And then I went to DC with them. And it was a great run. I mean, that was like the dot-com boom. It was just like so much fun. And then the bust came. I actually left that job before I got the buyout. I could have actually waited a little longer, but I was like, I'm not going to let that happen again. And you want to do things on your own terms. So one of the guys who I worked with there said, hey, I got a call from a headhunter about this search engine on Mountain View. I might give it a shot. You want to join me for it? I'm like, I don't know. It sounds crazy, but like what else? I don't have anything else. So then we got there.
Had you ever even heard of Google at that point?
I mean, I'm going to say no because I don't have like firm evidence. Because there were like 10 search engines at AOL, you had Yahoo, and they were all powered by different technologies, right? But you had Alta Vista, which was awesome. So you had a lot of different players. So the first question was like, why does the world need another one? And why is it better? Why is Kleiner and Sequoia, who I didn't know a lot about, but I knew they were really good venture capital firms, why are they backing this company? And these founders from Stanford, but they're both engineers. Can they run a business? I mean, there was just so many questions about it. You run it down. Like anything, you run it down. I could have been like, nah, not going to work, and gone and done, go join some other company.
It is interesting. It says something about you, I think, that you had two things kind of flare out, and then you're like, screw it, I'm still going to take another shot. I mean, was there any doubt in your mind at that point?
I'm 26. I don't have a wife, mortgage, kids. I mean, like I'm kind of still a free agent in that. My parents were great. They paid for college, so I didn't have loans. It's a good time to take risks.
Yeah, 20s is the time to do it.
It's the time. But which I think this has changed. Tell me what you think. But my parents were always like, go get a job at a big company that people have heard of that'll be stable and work there for. My dad worked at Sears for like 25 years. Sears. And that was a great company that finally fell apart over the years. But that was the model. And I was like, I don't really like that model. I want to try things that are a little more entrepreneurial. I don't know. It just felt like be part of a growth story, be part of something that's changing the status quo, changing how business is done. And if you pick the right one. But the important point here is I had 2 misses early in my career, which can really screw people up.
For sure. You could have easily just been like, I'm doing something more Sears.
Banking or Sears.
No, but I think
or something.
Yeah, I mean, but I was at Accenture, right? And I think that's
right.
People thought I was crazy to leave Accenture for a taxi alternative company in 2011.
But so that's the question. Why did you do it?
I thought it was going to be fun. I thought it was going to be interesting. I mean, it wasn't like I thought it was going to be a $200 billion company.
Oh, yeah.
But it was just like I was commuting out to Lincolnshire every day. And
okay, so quality of life.
Yeah, and just I was like, this is going to be awesome. People are going to want to use it. The same thing for you is like, I wanted to work in a technology company. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but especially being in Chicago, it was difficult to know how do you do that without moving to San Francisco? And how do you do that as a non-engineer?
100%. It's sales.
It's sales.
It's business development.
It's business
Tell
development.
me however you want to put on it, right? It's marketing. It's some kind of revenue generation. I mean, I'm sure Larry and Sergey didn't want to hire a massive team of salespeople. I'm sure they just wanted the tech to just do it. And the tech did a lot of it. I mean, a lot of AdWords, our core product, was self-service. But the advertising industry, at least at the time, it's changed a bit. It runs on relationships at the highest level. And we needed to be in front of our customers. And turns out, there's a lot of customers in the central part of the country. That was the big insight they had, which I give them credit for. And again, I wouldn't have had a job probably because a lot of tech companies would just do New York and the Bay Area, and they just fly around. Local wasn't important to them. Google's executives, Tim Armstrong, Omid Kordestani, had the insight. Let's put people on the ground in a few of these important places like Chicago, like Detroit, like Dallas, LA, Miami eventually. It really did build out like a regional sales force before a lot of companies did. Because it was important to be able to go knock on the doors, especially in Chicago, the big companies, but also all the ad agencies.
And sell something that people probably weren't accustomed to at that time.
Which is, this is where it's not, like youngsters listen to this are going to be like, what? Keywords. Keywords are the most perfect form of marketing, right? Or have been for the last 20 years. Like you literally are asking for information on something. You can put your message right in front of them with some kind of call to action, and you can track them through to whatever they end up doing. It's literally, it's the bottom of the funnel. Everything else leads to that, but it's the one that gets the attribution. So it's amazing. And for some reason, the first rev of the internet for sure was just brochureware, right? It was just display ads. It was just taking the magazine or newspaper model and slapping it online, which is why like Yahoo and AOL, there's the concept of walled gardens. They would keep you in their walled garden and just put as many ads in front of you as they could.
Monetize it.
That was how to monetize. Whereas Google's insight was get Max what he needs and then get rid of him right away. Get him off your site as quickly as possible, and he'll come back because he was happy with the experience.
And the information's better and it's cleaner. And
I used to be able to explain why the technology was better. I'm not going to try that right now. But it was a better mousetrap for a number of reasons. It worked better. But again, selling the ads early on, to your question, it was tricky because you had a company nobody ever heard of. We would talk about how we had investment from top tier venture firms, that we came out of Stanford. Like we tell the whole narrative because that would give the marketers some kind of confidence in our ability to execute and literally be around. They're always like, you can be around when this contract ends.
And a goofy name.
No, totally. And keywords, like we're hard to manage. Not to get tactical, but like we had a guy named Max. There was a guy named Max. Holy shit, I haven't thought of him enough. And he was called the Maximizer. Swear to God, you can look this up. And his job was to come up with massive lists of keywords that marketers could buy. Because there's always like people like, come up with a keyword list for your product, and come up with like 20 or 30 words. And you're like, I don't know anymore. But we wanted to target the ads as precisely as possible. So we'd come up with these huge lists of keywords. And think about that for airlines. It's like, okay, you just pick all the cities you fly to or something like that. But for like eBay, just a crazy amount of products on that. You could buy any word in the world, literally. So it was a clunky product to sell at first, and it was all taped together in the background. It wasn't like a system that actually just fed something in and brought it up. But it worked. And the people who got it early on, and he just passed away. Actually, one of my favorite clients was this guy, Mike Domack. He passed away at a younger age of brain cancer, which is terrible. But he saw it early. He was a ticket broker. He was like an online ticket broker, or figured out online ticket broker. He had a company called Tickets Now that he sold to StubHub or something, one of the Ticketmaster, one of the big players, and made a bundle. But he bought all the sports ticket keywords, and he was selling tickets online out of his bedroom in Woodstock, Illinois, his back room in his house. My business partner today had a company, Performix, and they were a search engine marketing agency, and they had all these direct response cataloging companies that understood direct response advertising ROI, and that's going to work. They figured it out early on, and this agency was Google's biggest partner in the world for a while. We had Orbitz in Chicago. They signed the first 7-figure contract with Google. Think about that. Most of these advertisers spent 7 figures in a day. This was like an annual contract where over $1 million. It was like a groundbreaking moment for us.
And there's no self-service at that time. Is it all?
You could put your credit card in.
Okay.
The ads at the top were CPM ads, and the ones on the side were this AdWords product. And then we figured out that worked better and was better to monetize. So they got rid of the ones at the top. It just evolved over time. But we had really good leadership. Tim Armstrong, who I mentioned, who's still here in New York and I think building another company. He ran Verizon or he ran AOL and sold it to Verizon. He's had an amazing career, but he was the head of sales and head of business development in North America. And he built out a great team in New York, great team in the Bay Area, and then hired us guys out in the Midwest. And we had this great culture, probably a bunch of B students, maybe even less, and just worked our tails off and took a bunch of risk and had a lot of fun doing it. But you could see it was working, but you also had moments of like, maybe I should go do something else, which some people did. And we won't name them, and it's fine. Moment in time, you don't know. The company could have blown up.
Oh my God. So one thing, your folklore about you had Kevin at google.com. So you're the first Kevin at Google.
I'm the first one who asked for the email address for sure.
Were you the first Kevin?
Never done. I mean, 185 employees, and the number is at most 185. It might have been less
because people had left, or
however they ranked the numbering, but it definitely was my employee number, so I know that. And then I remember getting a form. They're like, "What do you want your email address to be?" And I was like, "I don't know." And the guy that I was with, John DeCola, my buddy, we started the office together. He had Jay DeCola too. Like, I mean, he didn't ask for John. He wouldn't have gotten John because there was a John there. But Kevin's not a rare name, so it's kind of interesting. And then we started in a Regis, 401 North Michigan, Michigan, the river. There's an Apple store. Ironical. There's a beautiful Apple store on the river in the base of the building now, just with the competitive nature. So we're in a Regis, inside conference room, 2 desks, 2 phones, no windows, calling people, schlepping keywords, man. They didn't send us keyboards actually for a while. And so to this day, I'm not really good at using keyboards. I'm sort of just being on the laptop all the time. They sent me a cell phone from New York. It was a Sprint cell phone and it had a New York cell phone number, 646. I still have that number today because even through the T-Mobile merger and me leaving 14 years ago, I was like, it's just my number. And people are like, you live in New York? I'm like, no, never. Like, how'd you get that? I'm like, wow, let me tell you.
It's a long story.
It's a long story. But no, it was cool. It was tough being out on the island out there, but we started hiring people. I mean, slowly, we started to get some people in there and build our own little culture. And then we'd go to New York once a month. We'd go to Mountain View once a quarter at least. They were good about
building
including
us.
Culture.
What was your interactions with the founders around that time?
Yeah, I would think if I saw them today, they'd be like, hey, I remember you, like Kevin in Chicago. I mean, it was always the Chicago guys, right? They might have remembered our names half the time. I'm like, what are you guys doing? But we hung out. I mean, they'd come to the sales meeting because the company was so small. They wanted to see what was going on the business side. And that was around internal stuff. We'd go out to Mountain View, have a sales conference. They'd come by. The Stanford tree would come by. We had a graduation ceremony once because we got through some internal class that they handed out diplomas. Just things like that. But then the flip side was we'd bring clients out there, like high level CMO type people. And it'd be like, all right, can I meet Larry and Sergey? And they didn't, you know these types. They're not business guys who want to go and hang out and talk to people in suits. If you showed up in Mountain View with a suit on, it was kind of like, what's going on here? People would ask you if you were lost.
Yeah, you're like CIA or something.
Right. The famous story, Sergey was supposed to have a meeting with the CEO of a big customer and ditched it. And someone looked out the window and he's playing volleyball in the middle of the what? No, they were obviously visionaries and amazing guys, but they also, whoever figured it out was like, you know what? They were my age, 26, 27 at the time. I think we need to bring in, term for it as adult supervision. I don't know if that's what they would want to say, but they brought in an executive.
Yeah, Eric Schmidt.
And he had Novell experience. He had both the business, he could talk to Wall Street, and he was a computer scientist, so he could talk to the engineering folks. Right? And that's a rare combo of people who can handle that.
And it doesn't always work to bring those people in.
Sure. He was biased. I think he was perfect for it. He had the respect of everybody. He just knew what buttons to push. He knew how to be respectful to the founders, but also challenge the company to go in new directions.
What was that change like when you go from the founders running the show to an adult in the room, Eric Schmidt comes in?
Well, the weird thing is we got there in late 2000. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary there this year, actually, of the office opening. Eric came in August of the following year, so it wasn't a ton of time. Clearly, again, the investors, the board, whoever saw this could really take off. They cut the deal with AOL to do the back-end search of AOL and all the distribution deals. So he rolls in and everyone's like, wow, we're legit. That was actually the sense of it. We're like, wow, okay, this is real. First meeting, someone asked, who's our competition? And this is Google circa 01, small company. He's like, Microsoft. I'm like, Microsoft is not, they've never thought of us. But he literally in '01 was like, Microsoft's our biggest competitor. And that was Microsoft, the heyday of Microsoft. And he was right, ultimately. Many other competitors. That was just the level of like, hey, we're going to go after the big prize here, which is really what informs, we don't have to go on all this stuff, but they could have just stayed a search engine and just kept doing search. It was like, oh, let's revolutionize email. Let's get into mobile. Let's buy YouTube.
Because the company does IPO in 2004, so it does grow pretty quickly there. But what do you think separated Google from, there were a sea of these search engines. Yeah. Is it that they differentiate, they go on these other products? What is the thing that sets them apart?
Again, not maybe a big insight, but I really feel like this is lost sometimes. If you think about why Google was successful in many ways, it was timing, right? Which is like, yes, most things in life are timing, right? But in this case, you had a bunch of search engines that maybe were good or bad or whatever. So if the tech's better, great. But you just raised a boatload of capital, and then the capital markets kind of seized up. And I don't know what all the other search engines, what their valuations were. I'm sure a couple of them were public or whatever. I mean, they had other issues. And so Google's sitting there like, all right, we can just focus on building a great product. We've got a bunch of runway and track this down. But like all this talent became available, engineering talent in the Valley, because all these companies blew up. So they're sitting there in the Valley with deep pockets, with this great culture, like, come over, ideas come from anywhere, do work on your 20% of time, do whatever you want. Yeah, do no evil. And free lunch. I mean, they were the free lunch guys. And it was just like, they hired some great talent. If .com bust hadn't happened, I would argue that talent wouldn't have been available and it wouldn't have come to Google, and maybe Google doesn't become Google. It's an interesting thought exercise to think. We talked about it, Uber coming out of 2010.
For sure.
Google coming out of the downturn.
And I say this to people now, when I look at the market and how many companies there are now. There's so much venture capital. There's so many companies.
Yes.
And in the early 2010s, there was way more of a concentration of talent, right?
100%.
I know that we had a concentration of talent at Uber that is just more spread out now. There's more companies you can join. I mean, maybe there's some consolidation with AI now again, but at least for some number of years, there's just for people all over the place.
And that's not something you can have as deep pockets as you want. It's a timing thing, which is interesting.
Was there a moment, because you said you almost left at one point.
You'd get calls. You'd like talk to other people in the industry and be like, maybe I should go over there. And so back to that question, like some people left and all that, but if you think about what they left on the table, it hurts. I run into those people, or I run into people who we like interviewed and didn't hire, and whatever.
Could have changed my life.
But you just, you don't know. Nobody knows. So we were doing the best we could. We hired some great people. I believe it. John DeCola, again, I give all the credit to for bringing me over there. First, and having the insight, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's light at the end of the tunnel. He keeps saying it. I'm like, I don't know if I see the light. But we stuck together and we get through it. And then, we went public in 2004. So that's really the moment where you're like, okay, we went public. We're good. We're fine. In 2004, right, if you remember the lead up to Google's IPO, there was some controversy. Quiet period, Larry Seagate did a famous Playboy article interview, and people in DC angry, and there was just like a lot. They did this Dutch auction, they did this different kind of IPO. And I'm happy to admit this, I'm still a very happy shareholder, but after having been scarred from earlier ones, you can't leave it all on the table. You have to take some off because you would go insane. And you're like, I don't know, maybe this company isn't good. I wish I'd never sold a share, just to be clear, but I'm not complaining. They were very good to me. But it's interesting when I think back, the lockup ended 6 months. You're like, all right, I'll take a little off 10 minutes, and that was real for me. That changed my life in many ways and changed the equation of have a job versus being able to work on interesting things, which ultimately led me to angel investing years later.
I took secondary at Uber in 2015, so 4 years in. So about the same time you would have gotten money from the IPO.
Yeah.
And I sold those shares at $25 and now they're $100. But someone gave me the advice at that time, rich guys sell early. And I was like,
no. Right. All right. So the old adage is, you sit there and think about, God, I left some on the table, but what if it went to and you sold it? We have a portfolio company in our venture capital portfolio that is kind of famous. Someone didn't name, but you can figure it out if you looked at it. And it had a rocket ship ride. And in 21, when everybody was doing crazy valuation on that, we took a bunch off the table for our fund. Since then, the company's had to recap. It's a lot smaller. So that was a good decision because it's so much more painful if you leave it on the table and then it goes bad.
Yeah, and there's a lot more of the going bad than there are.
There is. So it's so much easier to say.
100x
And you can't time these things. You have to just deal with it. But the important thing here, you and I are talking because we both have this experience. Like, I still in the Midwest drives me nuts that like younger employees, they focus on direct comp so much. Get some skin in the game. If you're part of a successful enterprise and you help it grow in whatever way you do, you should benefit from that. You helped Uber grow. I helped Google grow. Like in our ways. I mean, I wasn't running the place, but
of course. You're also taking the risk. Even when I see people that, maybe I don't find them as impressive or whatever else. If they joined a company at a certain time and they made money from it, more power to you.
No. And that's actually, there is a little bit of a hangover in these companies from that, where people have been there for a long time. They get like painted with a brush, like, oh, you did what? But like that actually works against them. I think some of my friends have stayed at Google for 15, 20 years. I'm like, you gotta go out there, right?
Yeah.
Like, cause it's
just probably made a lot of money.
Well, there's that, but also just the culture changes. It's still a great culture, but it's just a different place. Again, I mentioned like that we were just slugging out in the sales stuff early on. That was a tough time. But once we were in public, you had the McKinsey invasion, all these McKinsey folks, super smart, amazing people that helped take the company to the next level. But just different types of talent for different parts of the lifespan and different risk profiles, right?
I mean, the company really, because it's a $100 million company or so when you join.
Yeah.
And then it IPOs at like 23 billion. That's like a pretty meteoric rise in that time.
It was a cash machine. No, I mean, it was again.
So almost immediately, you guys
a
are like, this
cash
thing's
machine.
just printing cash.
I mean, the unfair thing in many ways was we got credit for what all the other marketing dollars were doing. It is what it is. It's all kind of a funnel. But everybody wanted more Google. They wanted more. The tricky thing was you couldn't make people search more necessarily. So you didn't have unlimited inventory. So you had to, which is really what whoever was the architect, and there's many fathers and mothers of this, but everything just drove back to the search. Every product that ever was created was like just sending people to more search boxes, from Gmail to YouTube for that matter, but definitely mobile, which seems so obvious today, but at the time. It was just a great cash machine. It was cranking and we kept feeding the beast and it worked. So it was good.
You were in New York on 9/11.
Yeah, we could spend a whole episode on that, but I'll give you the short of it. We were here for meetings in the 1440 Broadway office. Eric Schmidt had come to town, our new CEO, and he wanted to address the business team. So we were supposed to leave Monday night, me and the Chicago folks and then the Atlanta folks. And they were like, can you stay over one more night? Eric wants to talk to everybody and welcome you and whatever. So we're like, all right, yeah, sure. I was going to go to Red Sox Yankees on Monday night, and I don't know if people will remember this, but Red Sox Yankees at Yankee Stadium would be amazing, and it got rained out because it was just this torrential rain like we had today. The night before, and then 9/11, that morning was just perfect, sunny skies and all that. But yeah, we were in the office, and my wife was in D.C. actually working, and my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and she was like, there's something going on, and I'm like, I got to go to a meeting. We leave it. And this is early cell phone. It's not great connectivity. I'm like, just do your job.
I'm only away for a couple of days.
No, we were there and it was terrible. We weren't near trade centers, obviously. And we were in Midtown. So we weren't in danger in retrospect, but you just didn't know if the whole country was under attack. All you could do is look out the window and see the towers burning, looking down the street. And you're like, okay, and where do you go? Because you don't live there. We couldn't go home.
So where were you staying? Do you remember?
Well, we checked out. We were probably staying at like the W or something nearby. But I mean, this is the weird thing. It sounds crazy now, but Eric Schmidt was like, well, come over to my hotel. I got a suite to the out-of-towners. And he's the new CEO. You're like, that's cool. You're a nice guy. Like, you probably could be like, I got to go, guys. I got a private plane waiting for me. I'm out of here.
And hide.
Or whatever. But he's like, come over to my hotel. Sounds great until you realize it's the penthouse at the Palace. And you don't really want to be in a tall building at that moment in time. This is that afternoon. You've seen what had happened. You're like, I want to stay downstairs. And it seemed like things had calmed down. There were jets flying around, military jets. And so we went up there and we hung out in his room all afternoon, 10 of us and him. was watching TV. I mean, it was really bizarre. It's weird to think about. It's not funny at all. Obviously, it's like terrifying. I always give him a lot of credit. I actually set him up. We left the same day. Eric Schmidt and I quit the same day randomly. And I sent him a note. I'm like, I'm out of here if you're out of here. I'm always thankful that you took us under your wing that day. So we stayed overnight and we found a hotel room, stayed overnight somewhere else, not with him. And then we took a train to Philly and got the last rental car in Philly.
And drove back.
Drove back to Chicago, yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, just such a terrible day and terrible. it's hard to even think about, but it's part of my Google story. If not for Google, I wouldn't have been in New York that day. But I also am very grateful for the leadership that day of guys like Eric and Tim and other people who were dealing with their own family. Everybody
was dealing with it.
Yeah, they had to. And my wife, our girlfriend then wife, she was in DC. She got out of DC, but that was a defining moment in our relationship anyways. And now we've been married 20 years.
There you go. It all works out. Any other wild stories from the early days that sort of maybe show the chaos or the craziness of the growth?
I was thinking about this today. There were so many great moments in time. Some of the things you remember are more like bad situations where something didn't go right with the customer or some stress you were under, or maybe you made a bad hire and that blew up on you. And I won't go into it because I don't think it's fair. But Google had these legendary ski trips and we'd rent out Squaw Valley, which is not called Squaw Valley anymore. But it started off as a couple engineers going on a ski trip, and then it became like they'd rent out Squaw Valley and we'd all go. And it was partying for the late 20s, early 30s. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But you'd see some senior execs and be like, all right, we all were having a good time. And you always be like, wait, who are they going to rent? Will they get you two to sing? Or there was always that stuff. But those were, early days because everybody was working so hard, blowing off steam. It was okay. It wasn't inappropriate. It was just like, you're grinding. I always think my wife lived in DC for the first few years I was there. She didn't move back until 04 or 05. I don't know if we would have stayed together because of the work. I was working constantly, and we covered the whole Midwest, so we were traveling a lot.
So you benefited from her not being in Chicago.
Yeah, and I think she benefited for her work too. But maybe an important lesson for all of us: like relationships sometimes don't survive these things.
Yeah. Oh my God, absolutely. It's also the timing for you. You could do that job at that time, and your life is significantly different now.
100%.
And it's all encompassing. You talk about we did these company trips too. Everybody was in it all the time. It's your identity. It's everything you're thinking about.
You're a Googler. Right. If you're an Uber, whatever, there you go.
Yeah, Uber.
I had Google Backpack in the early years, and then over time, you get on a plane, people are like, you work at Google? I'm like, yeah. And they'll be like, tell me about this. Tell me about that. Like, hey, how does search? I literally stopped and just started hiding my bag. I was so proud of it, but I'd spent a whole plane ride at
oh my God, yeah.
San Francisco talking to someone trying to explain our different products or what's coming next.
Mine would be like, I have a low rating. Can you help me change it? Can you? I once had a very famous magician.
Yeah.
I won't name his name, but you can take a guess. I had dinner with him randomly with Travis.
Cool.
It was very random.
Very cool.
Randomest, funniest things that happened to me at Uber on my list of crazy shit. And we sit down. He's like, I can't get drivers to pick me up because my rating is so low. And it was because he was making drivers. He wasn't bad guy. He was just making drivers wait.
Yeah.
Which he just thought you could do that. And again, he was a good, nice guy. And so I actually had somebody on my team go through and I was like, can you just manually, the only way we could do it, change the ratings
100%
of every one of his trips.
Right. Yes.
Just try and get his, and I sent him an email a couple days later, hey, your ratings back. Just stop making drivers wait, please. Or we're going to have to do this again.
No, the back end hookup at a company.
Yes.
There's a guy at most companies that can, if you
take care of a couple things.
One of my wife's birthdays, I forgot about this. When you did a search on her name, it would say happy birthday to her on Google. Nobody was searching on her name, so it wasn't a big deal. But I had to get Bart, who was head of ad ops in Mountain View. I'm like, can you mock this up and put that in there? She thought it was great. She was like telling all her friends. It was like, happy birthday.
It's a little Easter egg.
Yeah.
Well, the engineers love that stuff too.
No, totally. It's like cheesy, dorky things. But a big part of it is, and you know this, to be successful at a company like that is so engineering driven. And not the business people are kind of like, all right, yeah. You got to learn how to talk to the engineers and work with the engineers and be respectful, but also speak their language as much as you can because they're the ones who build the products. We bring in the revenue. I get it. But so I think I've been good at that in my career generally. It's not an easy skill because they're not wired the same way sometimes.
Well, and I think it also is just a general trait that I think people don't always get about working in general, which is be a fun person, right?
Yes,
be nice,
absolutely.
Be fun, be a good hang, be the person they're pumped at if you're in their room.
No, right.
It's like, it goes a long way.
And how do you treat the reception? How do you treat the workers in the office? We'd have guests over at our office and they'd be like jerks to reception. Like, who are you? Why are you doing that? Those are a lot of the good early stories. I was still there for another 6 years after we went public. I had a great run. I went and got my MBA part-time in 2008. Google paid for part of that. They didn't really like paying for MBAs, but they were like, all right, you've been around for a while. You can go do that. And
for you, that was more of just something you wanted to do.
yeah,
right?
I just always wanted to do it. I mean, in my interview, I always remember with Tim Armstrong in New York for the job back in 2000, he was like, what do you want to do in 5 years? I'm like, I want to get my MBA. And he's like, you'll get your MBA working here. You don't need to go get it. And he was right in many ways, but I also still just wanted that. And at some point, working at a company like that, you know this too, yeah, it's kind of a bubble, right? And you're so proud of being part of it, but you also want to be like, what's going on outside? And so going to grad school was my way to go outside and get to hear what other people dealt with. The irony, though, of that was it was from 08 to 10, and every time in class, it was inevitable that Google would come up. Well, Google's doing it really well. It's like, Kev, tell us about that. I'm like, hey, so I'm here to learn from
somebody
you
else.
Guys.
Right.
But I mean, you'd share and all that. But yeah, no, that was great. And that was when I started investing in angel company, being an angel investor, getting involved in the tech scene in Chicago. And so that kind of leads to things. But it also was an acknowledgement. Could have been at Google forever. At some point, I was like, I'd either have to move to New York or Mountain View for my career, probably. We had young kids at the time. I didn't really need to do it. And I just thought it just wasn't right for us, for our family. And Chicago was great. But I also hate saying this. I didn't love ad sales. Like, wasn't like something that I really
let's do this
got
forever.
me up in the morning. Let's go sell some more ads. Some people love it. I have so much respect for them. But it became a lot of management. I mean, I had great people that I hired. I love my teams. I still hang out with the people no matter where they are today. Like we literally hang out like on a regular basis, and it's a decade plus later. But it became a lot more of a kind of corporate job, and it wasn't as much fun.
Well, but you also had luckily had stock, and you were able to also do things that you wanted to do. You weren't sort of dictated by a job after that experience. And I think you've done an awesome job of taking advantage of that.
I mean, it was a little selfish, but really I was doing it, I think, for the right reasons. But we were Google Chicago. We were this growing office, and people in Chicago started taking notice. The mayor's office and the CEOs of companies, and they're like, you guys have an office here? What do you do there? Like, let's learn more. And they'd come by, and there was nobody in charge. There were 7 of us that had different teams, but nobody was really kind of running the place. And so they'd be like, hey, who wants to sit on this board, or who wants to help out with this economic development thing? And I'd be like, I'll do it if nobody else wants to, because I love Chicago and I wanted to be involved in Chicago. And so that opened up all these doors, because I kind of became the Google guy in Chicago. And so then you'd meet people like, J.B. Pritzker, who ultimately I went to work for when I left. But I don't think that ever happens if I don't put myself out there a little bit. And we were trying to build the brand. I mean, it was really to hire great talent. It wasn't like paid. We weren't being paid to do that. It was more volunteer stuff.
Yeah. So then you end up running a nonprofit.
Yeah. So I leave. I got to my 10-year, finished my MBA, and just was kind of like, all right, thinking about what's next. And I went and sat down with some people. I said, I'm thinking about the tech scene in Chicago starting to take off. Groupon was growing up. Grubhub was growing up. Fieldglass, CleverSafe, a bunch of great companies doing more angel investment. Like, I'd like to do this more, contribute more. And I sat down with J.B. Pritzker, who's now our governor, so it sounds cooler, but at the time was just like a venture capitalist in Chicago. And he was like, we're going to build an incubator and you should come work on it. And I'm like, okay, why would I do that? Terrible idea. Like, I'm going from Google to like work on a small. But he's a very convincing guy. And also he had a venture capital firm that he was like, he could work part-time there and learn from some great people at his team there. So I was like, all right. So part-time there, and then took over a small nonprofit. It was the Chicagoland Entrepreneurial Center, which became 1871. But people, like you were saying about Accenture to Uber, people were like, why would, like I always joke, my parents are like, when I went to Google, they're like, nobody's ever heard of that company. It'd be gone soon. And then when I left Google, they're like, why are you leaving that company? It's like the greatest company I know about. It's like, don't listen to your parents. So then I left to go work on this nonprofit. And it was fun. And back to my Jesuit guy, like I always wanted to do service. And I thought nonprofit work is kind of service. It was service to a bunch of entrepreneurs. It wasn't service to like...
Yeah, but it gives back to the community and creates opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, you're helping people hopefully build successful companies that make a big economic impact, that hire a lot of, and that puts Chicago on the map in the tech world, which we needed to be there. Because as you know, we were always kind of flyover country or whatever. But there were great entrepreneurs like Matt Maloney and Brian Johnson and Brad Keywell and Eric Lefkowski and all these guys building companies, and we had to play a role. And so I got to play a cool leadership role for 2 years. It was the best 2 years of my career. I mean, it was so much fun. launching something, being a part of it, building a team, going out and pitching and getting people to fund it. And then it working at the beginning. It took off right away. Like timing was really good. Again, timing, but there was just a lot of pent-up demand and it was a cool experience.
What was the idea with 1871?
It was not a new idea, of course. We went around the country and looked at places in New York. WeWork wasn't really around yet. They came by later. General Assembly, if you ever heard of that, that was cool. And that was in New York. The Cambridge Innovation Center, across the street from MIT and Kendall Square over there. There's a couple on the West Coast too, but we realized we needed to build a space for the entrepreneurs to hang out in Chicago. And there were other spaces, to be fair. We weren't the first one, but this was the first one that we really got the whole community behind. We had them all come in early on and talk about characteristics of the place, the values of the place, what it would look like, what it needed space-wise. It's really a community effort, which is what made it so much fun. And so, yeah, we launched it.
And then it worked for a while, and then
it worked out of the gates. It was like, boom, everybody was like all in. And it was cool. It's the first time Chicago ever said, we're going to plant a flag and try and build a community here and texting and all this. And so that took off. And then early 2010s, 2011s, it came up online in 2012. There's a lot of investment in Chicago. There were a lot of companies being started. There was some exit activity. It was really a good time. What years were you in Chicago with them?
11 to 14.
Yeah. I mean, you were right in there.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's interesting. Because I would say we hit our stride in 14, 15. I think 11 to 14, we were just trying to figure everything out. We're like, all right, we need capital. We need connections to universities. We need corporate connections. We need all the different pieces of ecosystem. I think we threw some stuff out there. Some worked, some didn't. But I did 1871 for like a year and I was like, okay, I'm good. And I wanted to be the start guy. And then my business partner was starting this fund and he was like, you want to join me? I'm like, sounds good. So I went and did that. Ironically, our office was still in 1871. So I still went to the same place for business every day, but just wasn't running the place. And then it expanded under the next CEO and it's been really doing well. COVID, I mean, long story short, our CEO now is Betsy Ziegler, who's just amazing. One of my favorite people, but COVID wasn't good for co-working.
We're going to the office or a lot of things.
Or a lot of things. And then, honestly, the social unrest the following summer, that put a lot of pressures on the community. So there's just a lot of factors that made the business model challenge, to tell you the truth. So we actually just closed the doors in the Mart, though I was there yesterday, and they haven't touched the space. So we could probably, the reality is, and we've been very public about it, so I'm still on the board, is we're just paying a lot of rent for the space. And just the model, the rent wasn't covering the rent. We were going to have to fundraise for the rent. Like that just doesn't make a ton of sense. So we negotiated out with the Mart and that was great. And the silver lining of this, nothing to announce, but is that when we said, hey, we're going to move, people are like, where are you moving? We're like, we don't know yet. And they're like, I've got space. I have too much space. Like corporations, firms. So there's a lot of space. And so people are saying, you're a nonprofit. You got a great community. We want to help you out. And so it's likely that we'll get some really cheap, really good space in Chicago.
And it'll be back.
And it invites a conversation too. I was 37 or so when we did that, 51 now. Like that was the right thing at that moment in time. Chicago's in a really much better place in terms of our tech scene and all the investment stuff. We maybe don't need a space like that anymore. And maybe it's in Fulton Market instead of River North, or maybe it has different characteristics or different tools or different programming for the next generation of entrepreneurs that looks different. And that's not for me to figure out. It's like, I'm saying to those entrepreneurs like you guys, tell us what you need.
Where do you sort of sit then with Chicago and the tech scene there? Even like New York, we're sitting in New York right now.
Amazing. New York's crushing it.
But compared to SF is still the hub for
100%
for everything.
It's the Mecca.
How do you sort of think about Chicago and just really anywhere in the United States that's not San Francisco? And where are we at with all this?
I've got new thinking for myself on this. I mean, people who know me probably are like, no, you've been thinking that maybe for a bit, or you're stealing that from other people, and I may be. So this is not an original thought, but I think what we figured out recently in Chicago, there's more venture-backed companies at every stage than there ever has been, early stage to later stage. Once this cycle gets going again, which it hasn't, 21 was the high point, 22 and 23 were the trough, 24 felt things like in Chicago, Tempest AI went public, Eric's company, like, all right, so we were starting to see some, and 25 with the rate cuts in the fall, some of the political changes, sometimes Republican administrations, less hands-on, right? And we just thought things would get going in early 25, and it just hasn't happened yet. It's been some of the uncertainty, it's been a little slow. The M&A hasn't kicked in, the IPOs haven't kicked in, but you can see they're coming. And once that happens, that's the turnover in the cycle, and then liquidity gets recycled. That's the most important thing, right? Investors get capital back, they start investing again. Right now it's a little locked up. We're investing, but it's early stage. So early stage is a great time to do that, as we talked about. But then talent's got to get unlocked. Like there's all this talent locked up still. And that'll be great because then people start leaving, going to new companies, joining Uber, joining Google early, whatever, or starting their own thing. So this is all going to happen. So Chicago's in a good place there. But the bigger thought, which is the part I'm not taking credit for, I'm stealing this from people, but is Chicago kept trying, and maybe New York has a little, I don't know. New York's New York and has taken the mantle from Boston in many ways on the East Coast, but we were trying to just be another software place, better version of ourselves, like try and get to be the Valley. What do we can learn from? Like, we'll build a bunch of B2B SaaS companies, which is like totally what Chicago should do because we're good at logistics, we're good at fintech, we're good at healthcare, we're good at industries that need technology. So let's just throw some software on it and see if we can do some good things. And we've had success. We're good at marketplace businesses like Grubhub and Cameo, Spot Hero. But the powers that be, including our governor now, has thought, like, you know what? Maybe we're never going to we can keep trying that. But we should look at the next level, like the next stage. What's the next stage of computing? What's the next stage of technology? 10 years out, 15 years out, 20 years out, or whatever. And most people would say it's some version of quantum computing, right? And so there's currently, and this is not new, we had a forum last week on our thing, but Illinois has attracted a bunch of companies to come build a campus for quantum computing on the lake down by the old steel site, kind of towards Indiana. And so it's state money, but they got this company, Sci Quantum, is going to build out this infrastructure that it will be unique, I think, in the world. They have one in Australia too, but I think those are the two places. IBM's involved. Their CEO was in town last week, which, IBM. And then DARPA's involved. It's a serious thing. And I guess we're kind of uniquely situated to lead here because of our geography for a couple of obvious reasons. But, well, there's not a lot of natural disasters in the Midwest, right? We're by cool water, actually, for some reason, it has something to do with us, right? And then cold weather is actually not a bad thing. Some people, we also have somewhat of an energy surplus, I understand, in Illinois and have plans to do even more there. So Meta just announced that they're signing some deal to take all the power from one of our nuclear plants, I think, in Illinois. The next big frontier is obviously computing power, but also energy to power the computing power. So Chicago's making bets, but these bets it's going to take a little while to pay off. But it's like, instead of just trying to catch the other leaders, let's try and jump ahead.
Yeah. Have like real long-term thinking.
Real long-term thinking. And like, who knows? Who knows if it'll plan out the right way or whatever, but I give them, everybody involved, and I'm a tertiary player in this, like a lot of credit for saying, you know what, let's do some big bets. Let's go after the big prize here, which will have then impact on life sciences potentially and other areas, clean energy. Obviously, artificial intelligence will be powered by a lot of this. So like, there's going to be a lot of uses for this, but you have to have the infrastructure. So I don't know. And honestly, I don't even know what the Valley's doing in that world. I'm sure they're doing a bunch of stuff because they always do. I don't know what New York's doing, but that seems to be the next frontier.
All right, so lightning round. So I'm going to hit you with some questions. Just give me what you're thinking or what comes to mind.
Why? Because it's fun?
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Best investment you've made.
Google's the best investment I made. I will tell you, all right, here's the best investment. Techstars, class of 2013 in Chicago, personal investment, small dollar amounts, massive return. Like they had this one breakout company, as incubators will from time to time. Right?
Can you name the company or no?
Yeah, it's called TradingView Software. Just in terms of like the amount put in. And remember, you invest in Techstars, you put it across 10 companies. And this one company, check it out. I mean, they didn't raise much money, and they gave too much up probably with Techstars, and then Tiger Global just bought a chunk of it for a lot of money. So
got it. Most impactful mentor in your career?
It depends on the time. With lightning round, John DeCola, I mentioned, he was a mentor and my partner at Google. JB's been great in my career. More recently, it's some of the sports world people. This guy, Nigel Travis, who's the former CEO of Dunkin' Donuts, but now is the chairman of this English football club that I'm invested in. He's taught me a lot about the world of sports and business and
I know I have more questions on that, but we're
Yeah,
we're
no,
out
I
of
know,
time.
I know. Yeah, no, that's a separate podcast.
Investment you missed on, something you turned down that you regret.
We have an anti-portfolio at Chicago Ventures that we talk about all the time, right? It's not any household names where you'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe you missed on that. But there's a number of great companies in Chicago that we haven't been a part of, either because we looked at it and passed or we couldn't get in it. We're not in any of the Groupon, Tempest, Update, like that whole world. They have their own investment stuff and we're not part of it. So, but it's okay. That's how it goes, man.
Most impactful book you've read.
See, you didn't tell me. I read all the time.
I swear to God,
I've been reading a lot of Eric Larson, who's famous for Devil in the White City, but he has one about the rise of Nazism in Berlin, the rise of fascism before World War II. He writes about stuff that before the big thing happened. So you have all the books on that, what happened. He's like, kind of, why did it happen?
The lead up.
But I honestly, I'm going to tell you, I'm not a big business book guy. I feel like the Google books. I'm like, that's just not interesting.
Yeah, dude. I'm saying. Best restaurant in Chicago.
Chicago Cut. I mean, it's the place to go. The guys who run it are my favorite people. It's lunchtime there. You can see everybody you need to see. And they were great entrepreneurs. They built a steak joint in Chicago that had 100 steak joints, and they did it better and became an institution. So Alinea is probably the best restaurant in Chicago. But
yeah, I'm a little part of Bavette's I love.
Love Bavette's. Yeah, totally. All right. You can go in so many, some people would say Pequods or something. You know, like,
Exactly.
I mean, depends on what you're into. Lou Malnati's.
All right, last question. You've been married a long time.
Yeah, 20 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Best trait in a romantic partner, your wife.
She's patient. I mean, her patience with me. No, she challenges me. She's an amazing mom, amazing wife. I'm so lucky to have her. You know, make me cry or something. But she's an incredible writer. She actually was studying on Kurt Vonnegut at Iowa because he had a famous part on that. Anyway, I've given a couple big speeches in my life, a couple commencement speeches at universities a number of years ago, and I can't write speeches to save my life. So she writes the speeches. I deliver them. And they're, I think, really good speeches, the way she wrote them. I don't know if the delivery was that good, but yeah, I'm lucky to have such an amazing partner.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's partnership right there.
That's totally it. Yes.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pumped that I got a chance to come here and do it with you. And congrats on all your success. And
thank you.
Let's do it again.
Sounds good.